This is the brand new Samsung Galaxy S25, just the S25, not the Plus, not the Ultra, just the regular base model. And as somebody who appreciates the best flagship tech in the smallest form, this is often a very compelling but also forgotten part of the S lineup. It's a flagship phone, it's a flagship chip, the same new software, and most of the same specs as the S25 Ultra, and yet it's almost half the price, selling for just under $800. And this year in particular, I think it's even more interesting because the design hasn't really changed that much. You see, Samsung's kind of shifting their focus a bit more this year to adding some pretty major new features that I'll explain in just a minute, but let's kind of take a step back and start off with the physical design. What is actually different about this one? Well, it's 6 grams lighter, a little bit thinner, a little bit rounder. The cameras are now blacked out, which honestly I think looks a little bit less premium than last year, but you can leave a comment and let me know what your opinion is. Maybe it looks good, but it comes in 4 different colors plus some online exclusives, but the main 4 colors are icy blue, navy, mint, which I'm a huge fan of and actually ended up filming most of the B-roll during my hands-on time with the mint one, but there's also silver shadow as well. So 4 colors, I mean, all 4 of them, pretty solid colors. You can get a little more colorful, a little bit less colorful. I'm happy to see kind of that balance there. There's still Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and color-matched armor aluminum rails on the edges, so durability should be very similar to last year. Unfortunately, they did not add, which I was hoping they would add, that anti-reflective display we saw on the 24 Ultra. You can see it still does not exist here, so that's a bit of a drawback if you're using your phone out in bright environments. It's still a 6.2-inch Full HD dynamic AMOLED 2X 120Hz display. That's a lot to say, but it's a solid display. I'm not sure why Samsung didn't improve the resolution other than the fact that it's just a really small phone, and I guess they're trying to justify the upgrade to the Ultra. So Full HD, kind of a little bit of a drawback here, but all things considered, I don't think it's super noticeable. Like, many people don't even enable Quad HD on their phones, so I'm gonna give them a pass on this one. I think Full HD is just fine, but it would be nice to see the anti-reflective display on here. I wish they would add that. As far as the cameras go, if we flip it over to the back, I mean, obviously they look a little bit different, but they're essentially very similar, if not the same as last year. Still a 50 megapixel primary lens, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 10 megapixel telephoto, that's a weird one I'll talk about in a second, and we're still getting 4K 60 and 8K 30 videos. But, and let me pull up my spec sheet here, there are going to be some differences in the camera performance, and once I have this in the studio, I'll do a side-by-side test with the 24 and the 25, so be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss that. But there are some new features as well, so not just the processing difference with the new chip in here, but also we're getting things like, of course, the audio eraser is a newer feature. We kind of saw that on the Pixels in the past. The way they execute it, I think, is very interesting though. So you can take a video, it'll analyze and detect, I think, like 7 or 8 different things, different categories of things. So the person speaking, it'll detect wind, it'll detect, I don't know, like vehicles or whatever, and it can kind of delineate those and allow you to adjust the volume of each of those independently and then put them back together to a new audio file. So you could just remove the wind, you could remove the voice and just have a wind video if you wanted. It's really quite impressive. It's never gonna be like studio quality as if you had, like, you know, different microphones on different elements, but I mean, for what it is, it can recover a video that, you know, it was a windy environment and you think that the video is just trashed. It's pretty impressive that this can do a really surprisingly good job. As far as the internals go, Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset, really probably the best Android chip we're gonna be getting this year. It's 3 nanometers. It's the same chip we're seeing on the Ultra. We're also getting 12 gigs of RAM this year instead of 8 on the regular model, so that's nice, especially with the addition of so many AI-based features. Extra RAM is definitely gonna be nice. And the storage, it starts at 128, but you can also go up to 256 gigs of storage. No more than that. If you wanted more than that, you have to go up to the Plus. Other things, this has sub-6 and millimeter 5G. We've had that for a while. This has Wi-Fi 7 now, and the battery is still 4,000 milliamp hours. Maybe we'll see some improved battery life with the new chipset. Maybe it's a little bit more efficient. But on the outside, and kind of the inside for that matter, it's almost kind of like a clone of the S24. So that kind of makes you wonder, like, what is actually different? Well, I mean, I kind of alluded to this earlier in the video, but there's really 4 main AI-focused features with this lineup. One is the Now Brief, is what they're calling it. It's honestly a lot like my favorite Garmin feature that I use literally every morning. Also like my favorite Pixel Watch feature. And this is going to be like you wake up, it'll summarize like your sleep, the weather, the news. It kind of learns your behaviors and shows you what it thinks is relevant. It's on the lock screen. I think they call that the now bar. It's also going to be a widget on the home screen, and you can tap into it. And I think this is kind of a really nice thing that, like I said, I've loved on watches, and I'm happy to see this come over to phones. iPhones kind of had something similar-ish, but this feels a little bit different than that. There's also an end of day, kind of like daily diary that will show you like the photos you took, summary of the day's events and meetings and stuff like that. And throughout the day, this should show you some other relevant things like, hey, your favorite team has a game starting in 15 minutes, or hey, you missed the game, here's the score, your flight's taken off in 2 hours, here's some suggested directions, and different things like that. Number two, we have some AI agents is what Samsung's calling it. So, of course, last year we had Circle to Search. That was a huge feature. I really liked that. And of all the AI features that they added, a lot of them, I mean, maybe you used them and that's great, but I kind of just write a lot of them off as, I don't know, just trying to add new stuff. Circle to Search was genuinely very useful in my opinion. Now we're getting a subtle improvement. You can also search audio as well. So if you're watching a video and you want to know what the music is, just tap and hold the bottom of your phone, open up Circle to Search, and then tap the audio button, and it can identify that. But they added another feature, a Samsung feature here, that is a little bit different from Circle to Search, and it's called AI Select. So if you swipe over from the left side, you get that nice little panel there. You can tap on AI Select, and this is not going to be searching. It's not Circle to Search. Instead, you can kind of highlight different parts of your screen and make like a GIF, a little screen recording or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how useful this will be. I think the concept's really cool, and I think we will see more with this in the future. But you can also have your writing tools pulled up. You can use that to summarize something, to translate something. If that something is maybe like a screenshot and it's not really searchable, you could use this feature for that. Speaking of searching, there's also two more AI features in the agents category. One is AI search through the photo gallery, which is kind of expected. We see that on other phones coming out right now. But the natural language search should be nice. So if you have a lot of photos and you ask for photos of, you know, that like Thai cuisine you had a year ago, it can go and find that. So I didn't have time to take a lot of photos. I kind of tried this a little bit. Like I took a lot of photos just like looking down at my boots. Then I asked for a photo of boots and it said, we don't have any photos of boots. So maybe it just wasn't able to identify what my feet were from the top down view there. But I mean, I think this is kind of a useful feature. And the last one is AI search through settings, which actually I think is pretty useful, especially if you are somebody who always has to, you know, help your parents, your grandparents, you're like the IT guy, then this could be really nice for people. Anyone who doesn't really know the ins and outs of Samsung settings, because let's be honest, there are a lot of them. Natural language is a good way to find like, hey, how do I change my brightness? How do I change like from light mode to dark mode? How do I change my icons or my text size? I think this would be even better if it was able to suggest things that are in Good Lock. A lot of Samsung users don't know about Good Lock, so maybe like if it said like, hey, this doesn't exist, this setting's not real, but maybe you want to get Good Lock, and that's a good way to get like Registar or Nice Shot or something like that. Moving on to number 3, integrated AI platform. So there's some other things kind of integrated into your phone. If you long press the power button, you get Gemini, of course, and this is going to really do a lot more now, so you should have better integration with apps on your phone. Like you could ask when an upcoming sporting event is and add it to your calendar. You could ask it to summarize videos and put them in Samsung Notes. You could ask for, find restaurants and text the list to my friends. And a lot of things like that. So the apps that it right now is working with will be Google, your calendar, phone, messages, notes, clock, WhatsApp, and Spotify. So kind of a fundamental list. I think that's solid to start with, and I'm sure that definitely will be expanding in the future. As far as the phone goes, I was hoping it would go a step further and like make calls for you, or at least be a little bit better at answering calls for you as basically an assistant, but they didn't really add too much focus on that. Instead, you just have phone transcription, so basically call notes on here. And I mean, it's not bad. That's pretty impressive. But my experience from testing these out, again, very, very briefly, a lot of them are very impressive. I think once I sign into my own account, I'll have a better idea of how they all work. But I don't know. I mean, it could be really useful. And then number 4, the personal data engine, personalized AI here. In essence, it's supposed to learn from user info about like the weather, the internet usage, gallery, health, wallet, calendar, files, like everything you're doing. And it's done on device, by the way. They said it was a separate chipset in the Knox Vault, the Galaxy Knox Vault. But for example, it can suggest routines. I think the example they gave was if you always turn Bluetooth on when you get in your car and off when you get out of your car, it can say like, hey, do you want to make this a routine? You could also do this based on like when you leave your home, you always like change the thermostat down or up. When you come home, you want it to be warm. These are all things that you can set up as routines, but the idea here is that it should learn about your behavior and suggest routines so that even for those who are not like really tinkering with routines, you can still have a lot of those major advantages. Like maybe you want the temperature to be decreased when you're sleeping. Maybe you want to turn the lights off at night. And maybe like a big one is if you watch TV to fall asleep, maybe you want it to detect when you fall asleep and then, turn the volume down and turn your TV off. So those are all things like I could go all day talking about different routines you can set up. I think the exciting thing is that hopefully this is able to recommend those routines and kind of set them up for you. That's kind of a summary of the features. We already talked about the physical design. Now the price. The price is not increasing this year. It's still $799, even though like inflation happens, so it's kind of nice that we still have that. And I'm sympathetic to a lot of the cost-saving decisions Samsung made, but I do have some drawbacks to mention. But by the way, if you decide that you want to buy this phone at pre-order, you probably won't actually be spending $799. There are a lot of good, like anyone who's bought a Samsung phone before knows that you can get great trade-in values, you can get bonus credits, student discounts, and different things like that. So I'll have a link down below, you should see a little pop-up right here. It's YouTube Shopping. It's probably the best way to do it. It's an affiliate link. It supports the channel, costs you absolutely nothing extra. It helps me out, and because it's through YouTube, it'll bring you directly to Samsung's official website where you can make that pre-order, and you are able to get all those discounts. Like, leave a comment. Let me know what it does for you. Some people will get this probably for like a couple dollars if you have a good trade-in, but my conclusion on this phone. I love small phones. I love that this delivers a flagship chipset at a more affordable cost with the same RAM, the same software features, and a lot of the same specs as the Ultra. The new features do feel futuristic, and I think once I start to get to use them more with my own accounts, I'll know how well they actually work, and of course I will make a 2-week or 3-week later review, so be sure to subscribe for that. But overall, it's a solid upgrade if you have an older Samsung phone, but not everything is perfect. It feels like Samsung is definitely holding back on this with two main things. One, the lack of an anti-reflective display. Like, it's such a great technology they added to the Ultra last year. Just please bring it to the rest of the lineup. And two, only a 10 megapixel telephoto lens. This feels like really a big miss in my opinion, especially when you're looking at so many other phones out there that zoom into 100x, 120x, and they have, nice 5x periscope lenses. This one feels like it's not really able to keep up with that. And we've kind of seen basically the same camera setup on this phone for like 5 generations now. I was really hoping for more of a redesign with the telephoto lens, and the ultra-wide still only 12 megapixels. But if you don't really care about those two things, this is a solid small Android phone. But if you do care about those things, by the way, Samsung is launching 2 other phones, no surprise here, the S25 Plus and the S25 Ultra, which I had hands-on time with all 3 of these phones, and I'm actually releasing all 3 videos at the exact same time, so I'll post those like here. You can watch those next. And if you want to pre-order, again, please consider using that little YouTube shopping thing down there to make sure that you're getting the best deal. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in those other videos.